The night Carlos died, Port Harcourt went silent. Even the air seemed afraid to move. For a man who once ruled the city's nightlife, who sat with politicians and oil tycoons, and whose laughter once echoed through the clubs of GRA, his end came not with gunfire, but with silence. A silence so deep it felt like judgment. Everyone who knew him had a story. Some called him a hustler. Some called him a hero. But those who truly knew him, called him a fool. Because Carlos forgot one thing in this city: power is rented, not owned. And when your rent expires, the streets will come to collect, especially when you owe the black axe. Port Harcourt never sleeps. The city breathes smoke and sweat, from the oil fields, from the barges, from the bodies that never stop chasing survival. Carlos grew up there, in a place locals called Waterfront, a tight cluster of shacks by the edge of the Bonny River. His real name was Chibuzaro Karik, but the street renamed him Carlos after he started fixing broken phones for the oil workers who called him the Sharp Boy. Carlos' mother sold food by the roadside, hot beans and plantain. His father was gone, swallowed by the river one rainy night when his canoe capsized. Carlos was only 9. From that day, he learned 2 things: the world doesn't pity poor boys, and nothing comes for free in Port Harcourt. By the time he was 17, he could talk his way through anything. Need a fake ID? Carlos had a guy. Want to sell a phone you didn't buy? Carlos knew who'd take it. He wasn't a criminal, not yet. Just a survivor. One night, while helping his mother close the shop, a man in a clean white shirt and gold wristwatch stopped by. He bought food, smiled at Carlos, and said, "You're a sharp one. You remind me of myself when I was your age." That man was Mr. Desmond, a logistics boss who worked with oil contractors. He became Carlos' first real mentor. Desmond liked his boldness, his curiosity, his hunger for more. Within a year, Carlos was working at Desmond's car lot, washing, running errands, and listening. He listened to every conversation Desmond had: how he talked to clients, how he negotiated, how he moved money without touching it. Desmond noticed. In this city, he told Carlos one night, you don't rise by muscle. You rise by mind. Use people, but make them think they're using you. Carlos never forgot those words. But behind every favor Desmond gave, there was a lesson in control. And soon, Carlos would learn that control could be a weapon, one that could destroy the hand that held it. 2 years later, Carlos had changed. He no longer looked like the boy from Waterfront. Desmond got him a small apartment in Romuald and gave him a car, a used Toyota Camry. He wore perfumes that turned heads, shirts that hugged his chest, and shoes that whispered success. But something was shifting. Desmond started trusting him with bigger things: collecting payments, closing deals, handling client deliveries. That was how Carlos met Tari, a calm, smart young man from Bayelsa who became like a brother to him. Together, they became the 2 hands Desmond relied on most. But Desmond's empire wasn't built on clean business. Beneath the polished office floors were secrets: illegal fuel deals, stolen contracts, and offshore accounts. Carlos knew this. Tari knew it too. But money was good, and hunger makes men blind. One afternoon, after a big contract meeting at a hotel in GRA, Carlos overheard Desmond talking on the phone. Tell the boys in Black Axe that shipment must pass. No stories. That name, Black Axe, stuck in Carlos' mind. He had heard whispers of them, a brotherhood that controlled parts of the city, moving quietly behind politicians and businessmen. You didn't cross them. You didn't owe them. You didn't even speak their name in public. Desmond had deals with them. And now Carlos was running Desmond's errands. He was getting close to the fire, but he didn't know it yet. Then came the night everything changed. Desmond sent Carlos and Tari to deliver 15 million Nigerian nairas in cash to a warehouse at Transamati. It was supposed to be a simple handover. But when they arrived, 3 masked men stormed in with guns. They took the money and left Carlos bleeding from a cut on his arm. Desmond was furious. He didn't believe Carlos. He accused him of stealing. Tari swore they were innocent, but Desmond's mind was made up. That night, Carlos lost his job, his house, and his mentor all in one blow. But what Desmond didn't know was that the Black Axe thought Carlos kept their money. And they were coming for it. Carlos went back to the waterfront, broken and bitter. His mother tried to comfort him, but he barely spoke. Nights were the hardest, he kept replaying the robbery in his head. Who were those men? How did they know the money drop? 3 weeks later, Tari came visiting. He looked worried. Bro, things don't add up, Tari said. Desmond didn't report to police. He's been meeting with some Black Axe guys. I think he set us up. Carlos' heart pounded. Desmond? Why would he? Because the money was never stolen. He used us to cover his tracks. That night, Carlos couldn't sleep. Rage burned in his chest. He had lost everything because of one man's greed. So he made a decision, one that would change his life forever. He was going to take back what Desmond stole and make him pay. Carlos started small, gathering old contacts, reconnecting with boys he'd helped in the streets. Some worked as club bouncers, others did side hustles for oil workers. Slowly, he built a small crew. And then he made his first move, he leaked Desmond's fake contract files to one of Desmond's rivals. Within weeks, Desmond's empire started cracking. Contracts were frozen. Investors pulled out. Desmond was cornered. Then, one night, as Carlos celebrated his small victory in a club in GRA, 2 men in black suits walked up to him. They didn't smile. They didn't introduce themselves. One of them simply said, "You're Carlos, right?" Mr. Desmond said, "You're ready to work." Carlos froze. Because he knew the Black Axe had just found him. This is Nightfall Tales by Wura, where every story burns deep, and every truth hides in the dark. Stay close, because this one will shake you. The 2 men who approached Carlos in the club didn't look like ordinary bodyguards. Their eyes were cold, their movements precise. The taller one said again, "You're Carlos, right?" Mr. Desmond said, "You're ready to work." Carlos tried to play calm. "Work? What kind of work?" The man's lips curved into a half-smile. "You'll know soon. Come with us." They led him outside to a black Prado Jeep. His heart raced, but curiosity overpowered fear. He entered. The car smelled of expensive leather and quiet danger. They drove through GRA, past the bright lights and gated mansions, then down to a quiet area near El Caia. The Jeep stopped before a large compound guarded by 2 men with rifles. Inside, under a dim yellow bulb, Desmond sat in a white native outfit, sipping whiskey. He looked older, harder. "Carlos," he said calmly, "I told them you were smart. I'm glad you didn't run." Carlos clenched his fists. "You set me up." Desmond laughed softly. "I protected you. Those men who attacked you? That wasn't a robbery. It was a test. I wanted to see if you'd survive the streets without me." Carlos felt the room spin. A test? He had lost everything because of that. Desmond leaned forward. "The world isn't fair, my boy. The Black Axe runs this city, from the clubs to the contracts. You can fight them or join them. I chose to join. You should too." Carlos stared at him. "And if I say no?" Desmond's smile vanished. "Then you disappear." Quietly. There was silence. The air was thick with unspoken threats. Carlos looked around. The men in the room weren't just bodyguards. They were soldiers in suits. So he said the only thing that could save his life. "I'm in." Desmond smiled again and raised his glass. "Welcome to the circle." That night, Carlos didn't sleep. He had stepped into a world he didn't understand, one that rewarded loyalty and punished hesitation. But deep inside, a new fire was born. If the city was a game of wolves, then Carlos was ready to bite back, even if it meant turning into one. The next few months transformed Carlos completely. Desmond introduced him to powerful people, politicians, oil contractors, even a police commissioner who attended their private meetings. Carlos learned fast. He learned how to move money across fake accounts, how to clean dirty cash through construction deals, how to make people owe him without asking for anything. Soon, his name started echoing across Port Harcourt. Clubs knew him. Businessmen feared him. Women adored him. He bought a duplex in Ada George. He started driving a Range Rover Sport. The boy from Waterfront had become a man of influence. But with power came darkness. He was now involved in everything Desmond once hid: intimidation, political funding, election deals, and silent payoffs. And behind all of it was the Brotherhood, the Black Axe. They never appeared in public. But their shadows stretched into every decision. When a contract passed, they got a cut. When someone resisted, they disappeared. One night, Carlos and Tari sat at his house, drinking and laughing about how far they'd come. "Bro, remember when we used to share bread by the river?" Tari chuckled. "Now look at us: suits, cars, everything." Carlos smiled, but his eyes carried a weight. "You ever wonder how long this will last?" Tari frowned. "Don't start that again. You're too paranoid. Desmond's our guy. We're safe." But Carlos had seen enough to know that in their world, safety was an illusion. He had also started hearing things, whispers that Desmond was losing favor with the Brotherhood. A new wave of younger, more ruthless men wanted control. And when the Black Axe wanted change, blood usually followed. So Carlos did something Desmond didn't expect. He started building his own circle. Quietly. Secretly. He began investing in young hustlers, giving out loans, funding small contracts, building loyalty outside Desmond's control. Within 6 months, Carlos had his own network. But power makes enemies. And soon, one of his own would sell him out. It started with a phone call. A strange number. A deep voice. "Carlos, we need to talk. Tonight. Don't bring anyone." Carlos hesitated. "Who's this?" "Someone who wants you alive." Click. He almost ignored it. But curiosity got the better of him. At 10 p.m., he drove to the old abandoned warehouse near Transamati, the same place where he was ambushed years ago. Inside, a familiar figure stepped out of the shadows. "Tari." Carlos exhaled in relief. "Guy, you scared me. What's going on?" Tari's face was pale. "Carlos, I don't know how to tell you this, but Desmond's planning something. The Brotherhood suspects you've been building your own crew." Carlos froze. "Who told them?" Tari hesitated. His eyes dropped. "One of your boys. The one you sent to handle the Romulo Coro deal. They caught him bragging in a club." Carlos felt a wave of anger. "I told them to keep quiet. I told them." "It's too late," Tari interrupted. "They've sent a message." He handed Carlos a black envelope. Inside was a single photo: Desmond's face, crossed out in red marker, and Carlos' name written beneath it. "They're coming for both of you," Tari whispered. "Desmond for betrayal. You, for ambition." Carlos' hands shook. He had wanted power, but not this. He had dreamed of escaping poverty, not drowning in blood. He stared at the photo again, his name written under Desmond's. He understood what it meant. In Port Harcourt's dark chessboard, he was now a marked piece, and the game had just turned against him. He looked at Tari. "Then we run." But Tari didn't answer. He just looked away. And in that silence, Carlos realized something worse. Tari was already working for them. Carlos stared at Tari, searching for truth in his eyes. The same Tari who once shared his last meal, who swore loyalty through thick and thin, was now avoiding his gaze. "Tari," Carlos said quietly, "tell me the truth. Did you call them?" Tari swallowed hard. "Carlos, they came for me first. They said if I didn't cooperate, they'd kill me. My brother, I didn't have a choice." Carlos' chest tightened. "You always have a choice," he said, his voice trembling with rage. The silence that followed felt heavy enough to break glass. The sound of water dripping from the leaking roof filled the space. Then Carlos turned and walked toward the door. Tari called after him. "Carlos, please. They're watching us. If you leave now, they'll..." But Carlos didn't look back. He stepped into the rain and disappeared into the night. For the next 2 days, Carlos vanished. He didn't go home. He didn't use his phones. He changed cars twice. Everywhere he went, he felt eyes watching, in traffic, in restaurants, even at petrol stations. Then on the third night, as he sat alone in a small guesthouse in D-Line, a message came in. It was from an unknown number. "Desmond is dead." Carlos froze. His heart dropped. He called the number, no response. Moments later, a breaking news alert popped up on his phone. Businessman found dead in his car at Eileen Junction. Carlos' mind went blank. Desmond, the man who had brought him into the game, the one he once called mentor, was gone. And now, everyone would think he did it. That night, Tari called. His voice was shaking. "Carlos, you have to leave Port Harcourt. They think you killed him. The Brotherhood wants your head." Carlos laughed bitterly. "Of course they do. That's how they clean their mess. They kill the pawn and replace the king." "Please, listen to me," Tari pleaded. "I can help you disappear." Carlos hung up without a word. Because in his heart, he knew he couldn't run forever. Not from them. Not from his past. So he made a decision. If the Black Axe wanted to hunt him, he would give them a reason to be afraid. Carlos started watching, instead of running. He moved silently, changing hotels, disguising his car, wearing hoodies at night. He wanted to know who ordered Desmond's death. Through an old contact in the police, he discovered something strange. Desmond had been trying to pull out of the Brotherhood. He had withdrawn money from their joint accounts and was planning to leave the country. That was a death sentence. No one walks away from the Black Axe. But there was more. The police report said the person who signed off on Desmond's final deal, the document that got him cornered, was Tari. Carlos sat there, staring at the file, his hands trembling. Tari, his brother, his partner, had not just betrayed him. He had killed Desmond to save himself. He felt something break inside. The kind of pain that turns a man into something else. "You wanted me gone, Tari," he whispered. "But I'm still here." That night, he paid a visit to an old ally, Chief Boma, a retired militant-turned-businessman who owed Carlos a favor. Boma lived in a mansion by the river, surrounded by security. When Carlos arrived, Boma smiled faintly. "I heard you're a dead man walking," he said. "Not yet," Carlos replied. "But I will be, if I don't finish what I started." Boma poured him a drink. "So what do you want?" "Information," Carlos said. "I want to know who's in charge now." Boma leaned back, studying him. "You really want to dance with the devil, eh?" "The man running things now is called Knight. He's young, ruthless, and doesn't forgive mistakes." "Then I'll give him one he can't forget," Carlos said. Boma sighed. "Carlos, men like you don't survive this kind of war." Carlos looked him dead in the eye. "I don't want to survive it. I just want to end it." Knight's meeting was at a private lounge in GRA, exclusive, secret, and heavily guarded. Carlos knew breaking in was suicide. So he didn't. He sent a message instead. At 8 p.m., while Knight and his men were holding their meeting, the lights in the entire building went off. A few seconds later, the giant screen at the bar flickered on, showing Desmond's face. Then Carlos' voice filled the room. "You killed my mentor. You hunted me. But you made one mistake, you forgot who taught me the game." Knight stood up, furious. "Find him. Now," he barked. But Carlos was far away, watching from a safe house. He smiled as the screen changed, showing a list of transactions, exposing the Brotherhood's hidden accounts. It was a warning and a declaration of war. By midnight, the news had broken. Anonymous hacker leaks documents linking powerful businessmen to secret organization.